Okay. And I'm just wearing this hat because I haven't shaved my head in like a week and my hair looks like absolute dog shit. I was going to wear my regular hat, but then I was like, at least I have a wrestling related one sitting over here that you gave me. All right. So, welcome back. This is 5-Star Wrestling Reviews, episode 5. We did not get to record last week. So we're going to be talking about the last 2 weeks of wrestling right now. So technically we are covering Monday, July 31st through yesterday, which would have August, 12th, 13th,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was Sunday. And I'm wearing this hat because I haven't shaved my head in a week and it looks like crap. So that's why I've got the LIGA hat on. And so, but before we get into the wrestling, because there's been a shit ton of interesting stuff over the last couple of weeks. I have to admit, I didn't do my homework. After our last episode, I was supposed to watch the Cody documentary. I have not watched the Cody documentary. I will watch the Cody documentary. I think I even started it one night, but was so tired that I started to drift off, and I was like, I'm not going to remember this.
Fair enough.
Fail on my part, but that's okay. Another thing I want to throw in before we really dive into it, because I think I wrote a page of notes just off of this was written in 5 minutes, like 30 minutes ago, just based off of what I'm remembering over the last 2 weeks. So that says a lot, in my opinion. But another thing we're going to start doing, this isn't going to be a separate show, but it's going to be a part of this show. We are going back and we're watching some WCW. I wanted to do this for a while, and now to not just do it, but then actually discuss it makes it, that much better. I would have probably slowly watched it on my own regardless, and I think you probably already have.
Yep.
But we're starting with the Memorial Day 96 Nitro. It was their first 2-hour Nitro ever, and it was when Scott Hall shows up, and that's basically day one of what would turn into the NWO angle. And
it changed wrestling forever.
Yes. We're not just watching this because it was interesting. I think that's an extremely important time point. And the next few years are shaped by that. So we're not going to go through like match by match, but we're going to watch the shows. Then we're going to share our thoughts. Obviously we're looking back at it with 2023 eyes. I remember I was not watching wrestling at the moment that Hall showed up, but I got back into it later that year when I found the NWO and Crow Sting. But I wasn't technically watching in this May 96 episode, but that'll start next week because we got a lot of wrestling to talk about. So TJ, I know you had some out of the ring things that you wanted to talk about. It sounds like a few things that I'm not even aware of. Partly, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons I'm not up to date on any kind of back rumors or stuff like that, I haven't been looking at the wrestling, any sites, because the G1 Climax technically finished yesterday, and I'm trying to watch all the way through it without spoiling myself. And so far I have, but I've still got 7 shows left. So some of the stuff you're going to tell me, I have not heard. So yeah.
All right. So starters, you had the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring.
Was it the Marty Jannetty one?
Yes, it was.
I haven't watched that either. I'm sure it was terrifying.
His ankle is all kinds of fucked up.
His ankle?
Yes. He's in a wheelchair. He can't walk.
He can't walk at all. Does he walk with a cane or is he in a wheelchair?
He's in a wheelchair in that thing.
I figured that would be the least of his problems these days, though.
That ankle looks disgusting.
Was it from an injury that he didn't get it fixed?
It's from the continual from wrestling. And then
is it not fixable?
It may be, but it may cost money.
Okay, yeah, he probably doesn't have any.
In the documentary, it talks about this deal where he was accused of murder.
I vaguely remember this.
And he always denied it. But in this thing, it was like a hypothetically, if I was to do that, this
so it was like OJ's book, how I would have done it if I had. So he did murder somebody is basically what it sounds like.
That it actually
that's scary as hell.
Because he had talked about it, like put it out there, and then he tried to claim it was a wrestling angle and all this. And I mean, it caused, when he put a Facebook post about it, it actually caused like the Columbus Police Department to do an investigation.
How many years ago was this?
Oh, I forget that part, but it's
5 or 6. I do vaguely remember this happening and some other stories that I've heard about Marty in the last few years. But continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, it launched an actual real police investigation into like a missing person, like all this stuff. And I mean, on this,
so was it like one of his girlfriends or something, or just some random chick?
No, it wasn't just someone random. It's somebody that had hurt him in a way. It was, you just felt like you were sitting there watching somebody confess to murdering someone, because it's like hypothetically, this is why it would have happened. And all.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how you confess without. That's how you tell that story without technically confessing.
And we went through. Sean was not in the documentary. I'm not shocked surprised. Either, because WWE guys usually aren't in any of those, much less one about this. There were clips of Sean, obviously. You had, talked about his drug use.
Which is still very prevalent, right?
It's fitting for the name Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
Might not be the easiest to watch this, but I would watch it. It was interesting just seeing, obviously we always hear Sean. You don't want to be the Marty of the team, but this really dives into, he talks about how hard they were running and all. And even at that time, Sean, as partier as he was, still had some kind of sense left to know when to stop certain things. So that's definitely worth watching. It's can get a little uncomfortable at times. If you know anything about Marty's past, you instantly would understand why.
Yeah.
But it was, I like hearing of that, because there's no WWE influence on that show. So it's,
as far as WWE, they would want to swipe any of that under the rug and pretend Marty Jannetty didn't exist until they want to make the comparison that someone's going to be the Sean and someone's going to be the Marty.
Oh, he talks about,
but you hear it at least once a year for some reason.
Well, he talks about how I think it was 2005 when they were going to do a Rockers reunion, and he came in for a match.
Yeah, it was one match. Yeah, I remember watching that live.
Because the match went so well, they were going to give him $1 million contract, and he lost the contract because he got arrested and because he got pulled over, and the thing that was cocaine in his car.
Like what, the day after the match or something like that?
Pretty much, yeah.
I remember because they had a match against La Resistance.
Yep, and
I think it was either really late 2004 or really late 2005. But you remember, or no, maybe it was right after WrestleMania, because remember that WrestleMania was Shawn versus Kurt Angle, and one of the parts of the build was Kurt took out Sherry, and he had a match with Marty and beat him, and I think it was then.
Well, Sean and Marty
are mixed up.
Sean and Marty had a tag match together. It
was on Raw,
yeah, and so, but yeah, he was caught with drugs and cost him his contract, because apparently they were going to bring him in. They were going to do like a little Rockers run. That was the plan, and then he pissed that away.
And
they talk about
just one of 10 different times that he's ruined a contract for himself.
Oh, they bring that up. He brings that up, that a lot of it's his own fault.
At least he's self-aware enough. He's not delusional. That tells me that he is genuinely just a hardcore drug addict with major problems. He isn't fooling himself into thinking he's anything else, though.
So I would watch that too.
That's going to be hard.
Other things.
At least he's not dead, I guess.
Yeah. Other things were, after Collision this week, after it went off the air,
which was in Greensboro, my hometown,
Punk cut a promo, and I'm online. You can't tell if it's shoot or if it's intentional or what's going on, but he starts talking about Hangman. And he says, here in Greensboro, I'll tell you why they call him Hangman, because I went to the local store and just out of curiosity went to the toy section, and there's no Punk figures, but there's Adam Page figures hanging on the shelves.
Okay.
Talking how he's basically not a draw, not this, can't sell toys, can't sell merch, can't this. Just going after it. with that, anything with the Elite and Punk, I mean, this is where it makes it good. You don't know what's real. You don't know what's shoot. You don't know what's planned. You don't know any of that.
That sounds like it was.
Well, I would say you don't know, but today it came out, like Fightful and like Wrestling Observer as well, that apparently Punk recently had what's Dolph's brother, Ryan Nemeth.
Yeah.
He flew in for the Greensboro show. Punk met him face to face. They were like inches away because of a tweet that Nemeth put out after the whole brawl out of Punk being soft. And so Punk confronted him and made him leave the arena. Apparently it's the second time he's been flown in and Punk's had him, nope, you're gone.
So he specifically has it out for.
But apparently he also has made it clear that Christopher Daniels, who's the head of talent relations, is not welcome on Collision because of because he was involved with the brawl out, and Punk feels like if Ace Steel is not allowed to be back there because of his involvement, that Daniels shouldn't be either.
But did Daniels attack somebody or bite them?
No, it's just taking it for his friends, what I think.
Which, that's admirable, but.
And then apparently he's also like Hangman was brought in at one point, or he was supposed to be on Collision and it was canceled, and the word is that it was Punk's doing. So before we cut that promo, we knew Paige wasn't there.
Interesting. So if it was just the promo, I would say that's planned. They could always turn the microphone off. If they knew the cameras were off, obviously. I bet somebody got that on camera, as in an AEW camera somewhere. Some of the other stuff, like Ryan Nemeth is not involved in an angle with CM Punk. So there is
it's because of a tweet.
Well, yeah. So basically it sounds like Punk is kind of being a bitch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not to bust your bubble.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, he if it's all true, I mean, obviously we don't know. Let's be real. We truly don't know what and all, but if it were, I mean, geez almighty, dude. The Elite on BTE. At
least the Elite re-signed, so we don't have to worry about that right now. That happened during this time period too.
On BTE.
I was worried if it got really bad that they would potentially want to be gone, and I'm glad that at least that's not the case.
Yeah, they had a thing where in the show they're going on about all we want is an apology. You were wrong, you were in the wrong, and just be a man and apologize.
But he doesn't. They don't say who it is. Everybody knows, obviously, but they won't say.
Yep.
I feel like this is partially. I feel like this is a work. But
it's a work shoot.
I mean, yeah, that's such a played out term. But I mean, like, I think it's a work, and it's almost, it could very well be like Brett and Sean, where it started out as a work, and then they went so hard at it that suddenly it didn't feel like a work to them anymore, and it got real, and it wasn't supposed to. But then
this is just the start of it.
I'm about to say, this is the comeback of it. I mean, when was the last time Hangman was on Dynamite? A couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Was it the Blood and Guts? I mean,
yeah, actually, yeah, it was.
Like 3 weeks ago?
I think it was.
Because
he's got to have some kind of involvement at All In. You can't have him not involved. He's been there. He's a day oneer. But yeah, if any of this is true and he's being a little bitch, that's just disheartening almost.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing was, apparently they're saying that when he made his first return on Dynamite, Tony Khan was there at Gorilla chanting CM Punk, basically fangirling over Punk. If that's true, I feel like he should hold those kind of in check, because then it's going to be hard for him to control everything.
I guess that's one of the downfalls of the promoter and owner being a massive wrestling fan his whole life, instead of just being a businessman who sees those people as like pieces of meat.
So a lot of things coming out. Look at the timing of it, right before freaking All In.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm almost, from what we've seen, I think it's pretty clearly going to be Punk and Joe at All In, right? I mean, but then All Out is what, 2 weeks later in Chicago, 1 week later in Chicago. What are they going to take the winners of the 2 title matches at All In, and they are the main event of All Out?
Who knows?
I mean, because obviously none of this is involving Hangman, Kenny Omega, the Elite, any of them. So I don't see any reason why they're, unless something crazy happens on a TV tape or on a TV over the next couple of weeks. There's no reason why they're not going to get through that. But with the comments, and I didn't know about the stuff you were talking about. That was news to me. But the last thing I remembered was Kenny Omega doing his promo, closing out Dynamite, saying, hey, we might even come to Collision, and obviously saying it in a very obvious way, and everybody cheers. So it's telling you, okay, this is
at the end of the day, Omega and the Bucks have more pull than Punk because, they are executive vice presidents,
and there's more of them, and
So, I think the last thing was Asuka's been in the wrestling news lately because of comments of Asuka.
Okay.
Basically saying that Stardom was created, the Japanese promotion was created to basically demise her personality, and it pretty much was created to go against her. And then she shortly moved to America, and then like all these detractors, all this, basically saying like in the Japanese media, people were after her because a show that she was headlining that she brought everybody in. They wanted the media down in front. She said, no media down front. You're going to block the fans' view. And they went back and forth. She said, I care more about the fans than I do you media. And so the Japanese media had it out for her. Now she's more so standing her ground, revealing it.
Interesting. So she basically plans on living here for the rest of her life and not going, because I don't watch Stardom. I continually hear how great it is, but I don't watch it. I've heard way more about how great it's been over the last few years. I mean, I honestly didn't know much about Asuka before she came to NXT, other than that I'd heard her name as an extremely good wrestler, but I definitely didn't know anything about her having a feud with the media or anything like that. But
yeah, I have to send you all the stuff on that.
That's very interesting. So I assume WWE has nothing to do with this. She's just sharing this information on her own.
Yep. I think that wraps up a lot of the big outside of the ring stuff.
I mean, that's news to me. Like I said, I've avoided the news because I don't want to ruin the G1 for myself. Usually I don't care about spoilers. That's basically the one thing each year that I am very careful about. But yeah, definitely didn't know the Punk stuff. Other than if you took Ryan Nemeth out of that equation, I would say that's probably all a work. But with him being added in, and he's basically an enhancement talent for the company and nothing more. I don't know. I mean, Ryan Nemeth, I'm pretty sure, just like Dolph was like a pretty high-level college wrestler, they could probably take Punk down pretty easily and beat the shit out of him, honestly.
So, yeah, it's quite a bit over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I'm glad you caught me up. I definitely didn't know about that, but so the real outside of the ring thing I keep looking at is, the ticket sales for All In. I know I just can't believe that they've passed 80,000, and
they're about 600 away from breaking the Jerry Dome.
The Jerry Dome. Is it only 600 away?
Oh yeah, it's under 1,000.
I think they'll probably do that. I mean, especially now that they're announcing matches, which I know that was what I was complaining about the most on our last episode. So I'm glad now we've got a whole bunch of matches.
Oh yeah, no, it's your heart's happy, and I'm just like, damn it, they should have saved it.
I know you didn't agree with me on that, but
yeah, 80,000 strong. They're even hit like all of the cards, like on the TV stills. It says like one of the biggest wrestling events of all time.
I mean, it is. That's not hyperbole.
It's going to be special. This is an instance where the Khan family money is going to come in handy, because think of the number of wrestlers they have that have entrance songs that everybody knows.
Oh,
Now
shit. I didn't even think about that.
imagine 80,000 people singing at the top of their lungs to Judas, to Starship Pain, to Cult of Personality. Adam Cole's they're going to do that loud. I mean, all of these that they are going to just be loud singing. That's going to be a sight and everything that's just going to be wow.
I just hope that, sometimes when there's a WrestleMania that's in a massive outdoor stadium like that, sometimes because there's no roof, the sound just goes up and it doesn't bounce back and sound as loud. I think there's going to be so many people there that's not going to happen, but that's the only thing I'm hoping for.
They say more so that's for the guys in the ring that can't hear. Like, you can always hear on TV, you can hear it, but they said in the ring you really can't because there's no, coming back down.
Maybe that's what they said. Okay.
Yeah, they said in the ring it's hard to judge because the sound's just going up and out, but on TV you can still hear. Because I think back to when Seth did his cash in at WrestleMania, Levi Stadium open. And it was loud on TV.
Oh, it was loud as shit, yeah.
Just like when he took that RKO earlier that night. Probably the greatest RKO.
No, I agree. That is the greatest RKO. I don't think
it was loud.
There's no debate on that.
The pop when that happened. So I think it's more the guys in the ring that can't hear, but we can hear on TV because they always talk about watching the match back to hear the reaction.
Wait 1 second. Sorry, one of the cats was trying to break in.
But yeah, they always talk about how they go back and rewatch the match to hear the reaction because they couldn't hear it in the ring.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard maybe like Sean and Edge and a few people that have had a lot of big time matches like that say something like that. So,
but yeah, it's I just, like I said, I first thought the music, man, and now it makes me mad that
Danielson's injured.
It makes me upset that Danielson's injured because that would have been the show for Final Countdown. Imagine, god dang, 80,000 people screaming that.
Dude, I think that they were actually going to do Danielson versus Nigel. I don't know how Nigel would be cleared, but we've said that about several AEW wrestlers because Nigel is still talking crap about Danielson on commentary.
Well, the rumor going around right now is that what they were thinking about doing was Danielson Omega 2.
Hell, I'd have been totally down with that. Holy shit, that sounds even better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's back up in time just a little bit because I definitely we're going to go through with the All In stuff at the end. I know a lot of stuff has been built up for that, but just to make sure I've got my frame of reference correctly. So we're talking about Dynamite from not last week, but the week prior to that.
The week that the Elite re-signed.
Yes, the Elite re-signed. That was a big deal, obviously.
They pretty much got given a match just as a thank you.
It's like a celebration. Because I remember I was watching the show live for once because I was in a hotel and
you told me that.
Yeah. That was that was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was good. And then Kenny dropped that line in his promo. We'll go to Rampage. We'll go to whatever. Hell, we might even go to Collision. It's like there's your next breadcrumb.
Like there's the Easter egg.
Yeah. So the main event of that show. So that was the week after all the controversy over the women's division.
Yeah, because the week before somebody had a sign from
and they focused on it.
And it said book the women's division better.
Yeah, and the camera sat there on it like, hey, everybody read this, which sounds insane. But now they've main evented 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that the match where Sheeta won the title, I mean, other than the fact that I feel like Sheeta's been gone and kind of came out of nowhere, and that seemed kind of random. I mean, I thought that was a good match and perfectly logical to main event.
Mm-hmm.
Not to jump ahead, but then the next week it's against Anna Jay. And while I think Anna Jay is improving, I did not understand why that was the main event of that show, other than the fact that it was a title match. That very much felt like it was forced to be like, look, we did the women main eventing 2 weeks in a row. And again, it's not like it was a bad match or anything at all, but 2 weeks in a row just was screamed a little bit too much of overcompensation to me.
I agree. I'd have been fine with it somewhere else on the card personally.
Certainly have the match. Yeah, but yeah, maybe the first week it's a title change. She'd have won the belt for the second time. That's a main event. That's good. The next week, her first title defense against one of the most inexperienced women on the roster.
Not so much.
Not so much for me.
But the big thing for that Dynamite was the Elite, the actually coming out afterwards, announcing it, the celebration, hitting the biggest hits, you know, all of that. It's
a fun match. That's all it was. It was a fun match.
And apparently it's their last trios match for a little bit. The Bucks are back in the tag division. Kenny's going to do his thing. You imagine he's going to go after Don and Takeshita.
That's what I'm assuming. I mean, next week,
you
got to sit down with JR.
Yep, on Wednesday and discuss about All In and everything.
So they also, on that show, they made MJF and Adam Cole official.
Yes. I'll get back to MJF, Adam Cole, because for me, that's just, I want to talk them straight through because I'm loving this crap.
I mean, I'm very much enjoying it too. We talked about this. It took me a little more time to come around, but it is very good. And it's probably the most over storyline in the whole company right now, to be honest with you.
I believe it was,
which is why it's the main event. So
I believe it was the 2 weeks ago Dynamite, though. Other than the Elite, my big takeaway, Swerve Strickland.
Oh, shit. Okay. I actually do have this written down, but I should have put a star next to it. So, okay.
Swerve, that was...
Dude, that was straight out of a horror film.
That's how you...
uncomfortable to watch.
Imagine somebody who's never watched Dynamite before, and they turn on and they see that. You're thinking Swerve's the biggest heel known to man. You think he's the biggest piece of shit because
he basically looked like a ghetto supervillain, and it was so perfect.
The line of sitting on the edge of the ring, I'm sitting where you found out you lost your dad. Damn.
I haven't seen an angle that was that intense to the point that even though I was like, this is incredible, it made me uncomfortable in some parts. Like when he cracked the picture of his dad had signed of the two of them over his head. And I mean, Nick Wayne tapped a fucking artery. He was bleeding all over the place. Did a great job. I mean, I loved, so they were going to have him call Darby, right?
Yep.
I want to know, did they plan on the fact that facial recognition wasn't going to catch the fact that it was Nick because his face was covered in blood? Does he not have the facial recognition and they didn't think about the password and they just forced him to type it in at the last second? Those are the details that I think about. I think that I want to think that they expected to put it up to his face. Blah, here comes your screen. It recognizes your face, but it genuinely could not because they had just fucked him up so bad.
Well, there was so much blood. It didn't look like his face.
That's what I mean. I genuinely think that's what would have happened. And he just barely is able to put the numbers in and they called Darby. And dude, that storyline went from, we talked about it. I really enjoyed Nick Wayne debuting, the videos, Darby being involved. Everything had been really good, but that literally took it to where after that, I feel like that program is like the second or third most important thing going on the show right now. Because, I mean,
AR Fox switching over with Swerve right now looks like the best thing that ever happened to AR Fox. He fits in
by a mile. Like
he fits in. It's such a different. It's just a difference in the demeanor. He had the look. He looks like he should be there with Swerve. Like, because I mean, he's athletic like Swerve. He can do all this stuff. He fits in like in the ring with him. But then you give him this attitude change, and they are the back and forth. They're able to complement each other, man. It's a great fit in my opinion.
Yeah, Fox is very, very good. Swerve is like moving into like, no pun intended, elite territory, like as a heel. I saw it. I don't know if it was a tweet or an Instagram, something he put out recently where he was like, and he didn't say this specifically, but I assume he was talking about WWE. He was like, I was told I was too small, so I gained 30 pounds in 6 months. I was told that I couldn't rap. Well, now I'm actually like accepting awards and doing collaborations with, I don't know who the rapper dudes are, but basically all the things that they told him he wasn't going to be able to do. And now Swerve like I feel like he's hot enough that after All In and All Out is over, Swerve could step into a world title program as the heel, and it would make perfect sense. But on the flip side, dude, what happened to Darby Allin, and who is this guy that they replaced him with who cuts these incredible promos?
That can talk.
Did Darby go to acting school, or did he suddenly one day just realize, hey, if I just kind of talk like myself, I actually sound pretty good? He's got to where he cuts at least one good promo like twice a week now.
This is where we talked about that. This may be the best thing to come from that stupid pillars thing.
I don't think there's any question that it's the best thing because Darby, to me,
it was immediately after that. Like literally the next week, he came in and talked like, "Dude, where has this been?" And really think that Max made him elevate, and being in the ring with Max for that amount of time, and maybe it hit something of, oh shit, I really suck at this.
He's tapped into something inside of himself. That's what he's done.
And it's just basically he went from trying to act like Darby to just being Darby.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blown away. I mean, I've loved Darby for a long time, but I thought of him as basically like this generation's Jeff Hardy, who, does the crazy stuff, has great matches, super over. He's got the in-ring charisma, but Jeff Hardy still can't cut a promo to save his life.
I wonder if part of it is he's realized, what Sting's done for his career. And now he's in the position to be that person to Nick on this stage. And because we obviously know how he feels about Nick and the Wayne family.
Oh, yeah.
So now maybe he views this as, I'm going to lead him through and show him, like, it made him elevate his game maybe because of.
I think that's perfectly plausible. Also, I think Darby is not an idiot. You can't take punishment like he is. Now, thankfully, he's not working like an old school WWF schedule where he's working 6 nights a week. He's probably having one match a week at most. But Sometimes two. But he's going to have a match. He's going to take some crazy bumps. You can't do that forever. You can do that for a certain amount of time. You can cut promos forever. You can be 60 years old and cut an incredible promo and then have someone carry you through a match. If you're paralyzed, you can't work that match. So whatever it is, I'm here for it, man. Darby is slowly climbing up the ladder for me to becoming one of the most well-rounded wrestlers in the world. And if you had asked me that a couple of years ago, I would have said, I love Darby. He does great stuff, but there's no way he's ever going to get to that point.
Agree. But he's had a lot of things. And this is also, you hear about companies investing in a guy and not panning out. This is investing in a guy, and it's working out.
Long-term investment. Yeah. And think about it. Why is it that we like Darby? Well, we know a lot about him. He had kind of a fucked up childhood. I mean, he was in that car wreck. His uncle died. All that stuff. We know real stuff about his life. And it's like, then you add in everything that we've seen in front of the camera. And, you know that he lived in his car and was homeless. And now I'm assuming he's doing quite well for himself now. And if somebody deserves it, it is him for sure. And he's just one of those people that when I see him come out, he's like Eddie Kingston. When I see him come out and I know that he's got that spot and he's financially set, it makes me happy because I feel like they were never going to get there until AEW came around. Yeah. And
if
Darby was never going to get a shot in NXT even.
But now and obviously I'm never hoping this happens, but if for some ungodly reason AEW had to shut down, now Darby can go somewhere else. And
don't say that.
I was just saying where
those
he
were curse words beyond curse words.
Where he wouldn't have had a chance anywhere before, but now because of this platform, he could, but he's already made it known.
WWE would totally scoop him up now. Yeah.
Because they made it known. He's made it known. I'm AEW for life.
Well, because,
he said he owes it all to the company. That's why he wants to climb out.
That's a great thing to say. Obviously, he's the one who put in the work. It wasn't like he was just handed the position, but I do like to see that when people have loyalty like that. And
how much more lawyers to get than say I want to climb Everest with a company flag and playing at the top of Everest?
None. I just hope he makes it back down. That's all.
So, Darby's ascension has been fun to watch.
So Swerve and Darby's ascension, I mean, really, kind of were running parallel to one another, and obviously they've crossed over the last few weeks. And so at All In, I guess this was not technically announced until this past Dynamite, but we're going to do Darby and Sting versus Swerve and AR Fox in a coffin match, which I hope Sting doesn't kill himself.
Who does the crazier bump, Darby or Sting?
Sting. Darby might do multiple crazy bumps, but the one craziest one is going to be Sting, and 80,000 people are going to absolutely shit their pants is what's going to happen. And obviously...
you know what my fear is?
I've got several of them.
So a fear, though, is you always hear about guys like Taker and these older generations telling these guys that you do a move, all right, and then the anticipation is, but what are you going to do next? It's that you can't, fans aren't happy with that. The fear is that Sting is getting himself in that boat because now you almost expect when he has a match, it's going to be some crazy-ass bump. And think about the last one he did, jumping off the ladder through the table. The hell, what's he going to do to top that? I mean,
I hope he does not try. He can do some kind of a crazy bump, and it doesn't have to be anywhere near that level. Because
I'm afraid it's going to be something with the coffin, going into the coffin off a freaking ladder or something.
I really hope not. That sounds very dangerous.
I mean,
that sounds like a bump that maybe only Darby could potentially walk away from.
But it's as much of a Sting fan as I am, and you know that part. I'm just kind of thinking he's starting to paint himself in the corner of it's the move or the bump more so than the wrestler.
I understand he probably came in and wanted to prove himself like, hey, most of these guys in this company are literally a third of my age. This is a work rate company, and I'm in my 60s. He's proven himself 10 times over. I hope
he doesn't have to do it anymore.
No,
he doesn't
of course
do
not.
It's just his appearance. Like he's given Darby the rub. I mean, Darby's better
he's
because
a big part of what we were just saying with Darby.
Without Sting, Darby's not here.
Oh,
Sting helped so much.
You mean he's not at this level?
Yes. I don't think because when he started getting more bigger name stuff, and even the TNT runs when Sting was there,
but he might definitely helped. Yeah, but I think Darby would have gotten to this point on his own, but it would have taken a few more years. Let's put it that way.
And so, but it's definitely been the best thing that happened to Darby was getting paired with Sting.
Yeah. And I think the best thing for Nick Wayne is going to be paired with Darby and therefore paired with Sting. I was kind of hoping.
I feel like, I think I know where you're going. But
I know what you're going to say, too. And you're right.
What's going to happen is the Mogul Embassy is going to get involved in the match, and then Nick Wayne's going to come out, and Nick Wayne's going to get to be out there in front of 80,000 people.
I do think that is going to happen. I had floated the idea of making it a 6-man and having Nick Wayne, and then on the other side having like Brian Cage. And you did mention those are extremely coveted spots on that show. And for an 18-year-old to get thrown right in there, I could see how there could be some resentment there. So I could totally see him coming out and having a role in the match, but I don't expect him to have a match on the show.
Right. So I think
I'm sure there will be matches involved in that storyline that will have him, just not on that night.
So I think that's how he gets involved in All In.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean,
then he could have a match. Then he could have a match at All Out.
Yeah. Or I wouldn't be surprised if like one of the big matches at All Out was a Darby Swerve singles match to like really put an exclamation point on. I mean, because they're obviously the two main points of the feud going on with the people surrounding them now. And of course, we're going to get a Darby AR Fox match. We haven't even gotten that yet. So, Darby, what am I saying? Darby is already challenging for the TNT title at All Out against Luchasaurus because he's also feuding with Luchasaurus and Christian.
So he's involved all over the place. That tells you his stock in the company.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining, but the match with Swerve will have to be later because I think that Darby is definitely going to win that title, and he's probably going to be champion. He's probably going to get the next Orange Cassidy run where he has it for a while, and he's having.
When he did that before, it was considered the workman's belt.
I know. Yeah.
I hope they give it to him again.
And then even him losing it was awesome. That match where Miro destroyed him And like it made sense because Darby had taken so much. It's kind of like with the Orange Cassidy story. Darby had gone through so much, and Miro, the crazy guy, just came in and murdered him. And then he had a great run too. So Darby and the TNT title mix well. Let's put it that way.
What were your, because that pretty much, that Dynamite, we've covered pretty much all the high points, I feel.
Well, so the only last thing was two quick things. That was where we had the Penta, Mox, and Trent, the street fight that was pretty crazy that I was not expecting, where everybody was getting dropped on tacks. I don't have a lot to say about that other than the fact that it was crazy, and that Trent, after having neck fusion surgery a few years ago, when he goes and does matches like that, it scares the crap out of me because I feel like he's going to end up paralyzed, and he clearly doesn't care for his own safety. The other thing, and this is, I'm interested in this story. They continued the Jericho stuff because they did Jericho and Takeshita versus Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. And Don Callis, he nailed Garcia in the head with the bat. Jericho saw it. He was conflicted. He got the pin. Obviously, it was the next step in that storyline. We'll get more into that the following week, but that was a big point there in the whole Don Callis trying to get Jericho to join his family or whatever it's called, which I'm still very much looking forward to that family being like the new age Heenan family. So I'm glad the way the storyline has gone so far. But yeah, other than that, that was pretty much it for Dynamite 2 weeks ago. So then we move into Collision, where we got the main event. It's in Greenville, South Carolina, so not far from my home, and that is solidly NWA/WCW/ Mid-Atlantic territory. Ricky Steamboat is the referee for Punk and Starks for the X Division title, is what it looks like. So it looks like.
For the real world championship.
Yeah, which, look, I'm all for angles like this, but I find it kind of weird that all of a sudden Punk brings this belt out and, like, clearly everybody else, because the people making the graphics for the matches are like, yeah, we'll say it's a real world title. That's a bit of a stretch for me, but the angle in general is certainly not bad, and I'm giving it.
I did enjoy the Punk and Ricky match.
So I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I really liked Ricky. And I mean, hell, since Punk's come back, I've enjoyed everything he's done too. But
I'll be honest, the payoff for that match was the next week on Collision.
You're right. And that is something I have written down here. So we'll definitely get to that.
To me, that's where the payoff for the match was for Ricky.
Yeah, that promo was awesome.
So, I liked the match, but I liked when Punk got up on the ropes and did the Ricky pose.
Oh, yeah, no, it was a good match, but I feel when I think of your standard AEW world title matches, especially the bigger ones, it was definitely nowhere near that level.
True.
Now, it was a TV match, so it didn't have to be. And,
but it should have been, though.
But
it should have been if they were trying to build this real world championship. It's the first title defense of the real world championship. Make it a big one.
I mean, I feel like Ricky Starks is one of the bigger stars on Collision.
I mean, like on TV, like how are you going to make the match, like the time, the everything, You're saying maximize what you've got in there. Okay. Yep. And you're saying that you don't feel like they did that, or you feel like they did? It could have done, I feel like it could have done more.
Okay, that's what I was going. I by no means am I saying I dislike the match. If you're going to look at it from a star perspective, which obviously that's very subjective. It was like, I don't know, 3.5. It was a good title match, but there was nothing spectacular about it whatsoever.
I would say the payoff was everything after Ricky beats the shit out of Ricky.
Yeah.
With a belt, and that was like, God, it looked like he was laying that in too.
Yeah, Steamboat's 70 years old too. He's not young.
First thing, we were watching
he looks great though.
I told Amy, I was like, you've seen Ric Flair and how rough he looks. I said, look at Steamboat. They wrestled each other. It's like, yeah,
Steamboat's only a couple of years younger.
Like they're about the same age, and look at the difference in what they've done to their body. And that's not because of that.
Steamboat could pass for 50.
I was like, that's not a bad. That's not Flair just ages badly. That's just Flair what he did to his body versus what Steamboat didn't do to his.
Right.
So,
yeah,
Steamboat looks great. It's one and done for him on that. You're good. It's just he was there pretty much for that attack and to piss Punk off, and really not much follow up on that. Well, actually, yeah, there was. I mean, for Ricky, nothing for Punk.
Nothing from Punk yet. So I heard, and this was before the match, and obviously this isn't going to happen, but I had heard someone float the idea, because remember, Ricky Steamboat did a match last year. He was in Ric Flair's last match, and it was a 6-man, so he probably only had to work a couple of minutes, but he looked great, like he did, when he did WrestleMania with Chris Jericho a few years back, and nobody expected, and all of a sudden, holy crap, Ricky Steamboat is still really good.
That match was, because that's when they had like Jericho against all the legends.
Yeah, and the only one that actually did anything was Steamboat, and that turned into like a 10-minute match. And then they had a full-on match at Backlash a month later that was better than what most of the 30-year-olds in the company were doing far. But so I had heard people say Punk needed a big match for All In. Something happens with Steamboat, and we do Punk versus Steamboat at All In Steamboat's real retirement match. And the tie-in is that the crowd is more than WrestleMania 3, where, other than Andre and Hogan, the big match was Steamboat and Savage. And it's almost like Punk plays Savage. Now, I don't want to see Ricky Steamboat work a singles match anywhere, to be honest with you.
I like the route they're going. I like the route they're going instead.
I agree. It would have been interesting, but I'm glad that they're not going that route. And Ricky Steamboat, he lives in South Carolina. I think he probably had like a 10-minute drive to the arena. So
it was an easy payday. It was logical because he does have a history with Punk. Again, love that they own ROH. They can actually show the footage of that, because I remember that storyline as it was happening in 2004 when Punk was starting to blow up. But so also on that show, we had.
Oh, you're good.
It's started getting warm in this room. I'm turning my fan on.
Oh, I got one on too.
But
okay, so also on the show we had a couple of challenges. We had FTR have another title match. I mean, that was 3 weeks in a row that they've had a title match, and 4 weeks in a row they had a match. One that was a non-title match they lost. Then the 58-minute match with Jay and Juice. Then the match with Cole and MJF. Now with Big Bill and Brian Cage, the mutant, who I guess is his gimmick now that he cosplays as a famous wrestler every time. And I'm not saying that as a joke, because he dressed up as Sting. And then this past week on Collision, he dressed up as a Road Warrior. Did you notice that? I've
noticed the paint and everything. It's a good touch for him. I mean,
I think it's cool. I mean, I know he's like such a huge fan. He is absolutely probably marking out for doing something with Sting. And I mean, he already looks like a superhero. So when he cosplays as something, it's going to look interesting, because I mean, he admits he has radioactive piss because he takes so much steroids. So, I mean, that match was certainly not, it was certainly the worst out of all the matches over that 4-week period for FTR, but that's not a fair comparison. They win the match. They challenge the Bucks. I was very much hoping that we were going to get this match on the show. So, I mean, to me, that's the first match that was officially, that constitutes a huge match for me. That is what I wanted on this card. They're saying it's like the culmination of an 8-year feud. Was it 2015 when FTR, I guess that was when they first got over and they were having their little Twitter beef with the Bucks.
Yep.
And then they finally had a match, during COVID, nobody was there, but it was a 5-star match all day long. And then they had the one last year on TV. So it's 1-1. FTR's got the titles. I mean, they're the two best teams of the last 15, 20 years or whatever, for the most part, at least.
You take them to the Usos and New Day. There's your top.
Oh, and the Usos. You're right. Okay. You got to throw all 4 of them in there too. Those are probably of the last 15 years, those are the 4.
Those are the 4.
The 4. And with number 5 not even being close.
Nope. It's basically number 5 through infinity is just enhancing them.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. But so not only under any circumstances, that being a big match at All In for the tag titles is huge. But then obviously you got to throw in the fact that FTR is extremely attached to Punk, and we've got the Elite. So this
was right after the Omega will go to Collision thing. So it's like, okay, maybe this is the start of something. You know, it's going to get brought up when they talk with each other.
Of course. That's why I think that all these people have sat down at this point and hashed things out, and they're like, we're just going to play the long game, and everything from here on out is a work. The part you told me about Ryan Nemeth is the one part that bothers me. Other than that, I feel that they're just moving slow with it. They're giving you – I don't think they'd be dropping these little Easter eggs for no reason, because after the first one got dropped, which was Punk doing his comeback promo about the counterfeit Bucks, Tony would have said, no, they were not doing that, he would have hopefully put a stop to that, because you can't tease the fans with something that huge knowing you're never going to do it.
What's interesting is the timing now, too, because you got to think Brawl Out, it was an All Out last year. We're almost a year away from when everything happened.
So, I mean, hell, after the dust clears after All Out and maybe we have only one world champion, maybe at that point, or hell, maybe somebody gets involved so that Punk doesn't become the champion and we're off to the races. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
That person being Kenny Omega, in case that wasn't obvious.
Before we go to the next week's show, I think a good way to set with this bridge both weeks of everything. Now we can talk about Cole and MJF because they're involved in both weeks, so that way not splitting that.
Right.
For me, that's the story they have going on. We know a split's happening. We know something's coming up. I am with you. I really think it's going to be Cole that turns. I think at this point they have to make it Cole because they've kind of pinned themselves in a corner with MJF. The people freaking love him. And the best thing they did during this little face run
was make it clear he was still going to be a dickhead.
Yes. Because then, okay, it's known I'm cheering the dickhead. I'm cheering the scumbag because I'm your scumbag.
Yeah.
Which that's great. I mean, to me, the way they did that. So the old school style, cheer the face, boo the heel. Well, this is the heel trying to become the face. So, hey, I'm going to get behind him as he tries to turn it around. I think they've kind of pinned themselves in a corner that you have to keep MJF a face at this point. Let him just be that gray area type of deal. Think of, I mean, it's worked like Roman's done it. We know that where at times he's cheered a lot. You've had a lot of these gray area people over time. Here more lately, obviously, than in the past. But
I would say more lately they've been successful. They've been trying to do this for a while, and generally it didn't work. But it feels like in the last few years that's become much more accepted as.
Think of Eddie. Eddie was a great one who he lied, cheated, and stole, but he was a face that got cheered for lying, cheating, and stealing. He was the
cheater for the people.
So,
and you knew his story, and how can you not? At that point, how could you not love Eddie Guerrero for every reason possible? But that's a totally different story.
And Dave, I'm loving the weekly vignette, the weekly videos.
I mean, they're corny as shit, but they're great.
It's worked for me from the beginning. I've told you that on video.
You're right, and I think at first I was like, I'm not so sure about this.
I was sold. I love the shirt better than you, baby. I still want to order that shirt.
I'd say, did you get one?
Not yet, but I do plan to. During this,
they've sold a lot of them.
During this, they got over a freaking double clothesline.
That's the best part of the whole thing to me. I mean, I think I said last time, when you are good enough of a storyteller to make a double clothesline that big of a deal, you are very good at doing pro wrestling.
So now we know, obviously we got MJF and Cole main eventing. They've made it clear that it's the main event. It's the biggest match on the biggest show. They're main eventing All In. But we also get them on the buy-in, the 0 hour, going against Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor tag titles. Now, my opinion on what happens, because they keep bringing the Kingdom and Roddy into this, I think that's where the turn happens, is during that tag match. Say, for example, the Kingdom tries to come down and Cole runs them off, just trying to slow play it. Then they go for the double clothesline, and all of a sudden, super kick.
Yeah.
And then there you go.
They don't win the ROH titles.
They don't win the tag titles.
But Cole turns on him and
makes MJF take the pin.
Right.
And then they have their match later in the night. We also don't know about the contract because that's going to come back at some point of what Cole signed without reading.
Yeah.
I
forgot about that actually.
Say Cole wins, and then the next, not right away, but send the people home not happy. Basically, in that sense, like Cole wins. Wednesday is revealed. Actually, that wasn't a title match.
Oh God, I would hate that. that would be a dusty finish times 10.
But that's an easy way to prolong it to All In for the actual title match, and then if you want, MJF can. So now they both got their win. Type of deal.
So I heard another theory that kind of similar to what you said, they have their title match. MJF he loses to Aussie Open because of something. I mean, probably not clean. But then they have their main event and it gets a little heated, but it's mostly a babyface versus babyface match where MJF wins. But then coming out of it, the story is MJF goes all out and can win when it's for the title, but he's dropped 2 falls when it would have benefited the 2 of them. So is MJF dogging it because he doesn't want to wrestle this many times in one night? Or does Adam Cole see him as a weak link and decide it's not worth it, and then he turns on him? So
I think the fact they're in 2 matches like this on that shows where they stand with Tony Khan too.
Oh, fuck yeah.
It's the biggest night in
they're main eventing the big show. I mean, damn.
Obviously, it's the biggest night
and closing it.
It's the biggest night in company history, obviously. And it's very close to being the biggest show in wrestling history.
Yeah.
And you got them on there twice.
Yeah, I mean,
so you kick somebody else off the card for that to put them on there
pre-show, but still.
But that makes the pre-show must watch.
But so that's what I'm wondering. Is the pre-show going to be put? I wouldn't be surprised if they put that pre-show like on TBS or something, because if it was just on YouTube, there's no reason to load that up. People who are going to buy the show are going to buy it. You don't need to have a match like that. If it was going to be on YouTube, they could have done it on Collision the night before the show. And then if there's going to be a turn there, that would have been the main event of Collision the night before. Well, I guess they're going to have to tape Collision probably in the United States because the night before Wembley, they'll already be in Wembley and they're not going to do 2 shows from there.
Oh, yeah, I think they're doing a Friday Collision.
Okay, so maybe like that would be when it would be logical for me. That's why I'm saying, well, I think maybe this 0 hour is actually going to be on television, so they're going to try to pop a rating because they've done that before.
But what they could do is they could do Collision Friday, Rampage Saturday, because they'll tape Rampage after Dynamite on Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
Because Rampage is taped after Dynamite.
Usually, I believe, yeah.
So they could show that Saturday and put Collision live Friday.
Okay. Yeah, no, okay. I could see that. That would make sense.
And just flip it for the week.
But you're not saying anything about adding the match to Collision or anything like that. You're keeping it like that. You're just talking about what their schedule is most likely going to be logistically.
Which that would actually logistically be a good test for, all right, football season's coming around the corner. We're going to lose all these ratings. Obviously, yeah, we know on Friday we're going against SmackDown, who does more viewers than Raw. Is it worth flipping or is it not?
That's a good question.
It's a good test.
It's definitely a good test.
I mean,
so would they load up that Collision knowing it's going against SmackDown?
Hell yeah, because they have to, because it's the last live show before the freaking biggest show ever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would totally be down with that.
But yeah, I'm loving all of MJF Cole. I loved it. The one match they've had, it was really freaking spectacular.
Good. That was the one thing I never complained about. I just wasn't sure about the angle, and I am willing to admit that I gave it a chance. I was, well, I'm not gonna say I was wrong, but they won me over easily, just because.
Well, I kind of feel like the fact of how I got excited by it made you kind of okay. Well,
you made me give it a chance.
Yeah, it was like, am I missing something?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And yes, it has obviously become very good.
It's the first thing you can say that feels like it's taken the driver's seat away from the Elite and CMFTR.
Yeah, and
because that's always been in the back of the mind.
And to me, the Swerve and Darby stuff, like those are the three biggest storylines for me at the moment.
But that's
and Kenny versus Don Callis, basically, or and Takeshita by extension.
But I just wanted to use the Cole and MJF as segue into both weeks because you can't talk about. I mean, we could talk about them for a long time, pretty much the whole damn show. It's this last Dynamite though. There was something else that would happen that I wanted to see because I kind of know your opinion, but I don't. Dude, friggin' RVD looked great.
He's ripped, dude.
RVD is. I'll be honest. I looked at Amy again. We're watching it. She gets stuck watching that each week with me. I was like, "Look what weed does for the body."
Dude, yeah, he looks great, and
I'll be honest,
good.
Seeing him wrestle made me go back and watch some of these ECW shows. I wanted to see some of this old stuff. Because
you probably have a lot of that you have not seen, right?
I mean, I've seen the One Night Stand. I love the One Night Stand.
No, I'm talking about back to original ECW.
Yeah, no, I hadn't seen a lot of that.
That's what you need to. You can find a lot of that on like RVD matches like that on YouTube, where it's got the music intact instead of the crappy WWE version. But I mean, even if you watched it on the network, at least you can see his matches with. I mean, hell, go back and watch all the matches with Jerry Lynn. Go back and watch.
Well, you bringing up Jerry Lynn is you notice Jungle Boy's attire?
Yeah, it was Jerry Lynn attire. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So we're to another topic, and it's a good one. So Jack Perry's basically feuding with ECW, right? I mean,
what do you think the long play here is? Because there's only so many ECW originals that you could bring in. Because, well, let's be real, that body can't do shit.
Yeah, I mean, Taz would have been the most logical. Taz can't. If Taz could have worked a match, he would have been at one of the one night stands, and those shows were almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
I think Hook is the end destination. I just don't know if there is another ECW plot point for. So is Jungle Boy Hook a good match for All In, or is there one other ECW person that can job to Jack Perry at Wembley and then they do Hook maybe the following week at All Out?
There's one that could actually wrestle a match and do that.
Wait, don't tell me. Is it
that would do it? Let me put it that way.
Tommy Dreamer?
There's two that could, one that would.
Tommy Dreamer?
Yep.
And Bully Ray?
Yep.
Oh, look at me.
Tommy Dreamer's the one that would. Bully Ray could.
Why would Bully Ray not?
I listened to Busted Open. Like, I mean, we both know that too.
Yeah.
He's even said for him to do. He's not the kind. He doesn't have to go in for just one match. He will go to a company to do a story.
Yeah, that's like what he did with Impact.
He wants to do stories. He doesn't want to do a match.
That's fair. I get that. I have no issue with that.
And he doesn't have a problem.
And he's a very good storyteller. So
at the end of the story, he doesn't mind putting over the guy, but he wants to build this. He wants to build the story. He doesn't want to just come in and job to the guy and hey, thanks, here you go. Like I can respect it. I got no issue.
I totally see the logic in that. I hadn't heard that, but I totally see the logic in that.
And with how his mind works, like that's why I mean, honestly, I like listening to him talk about it because
he's extremely smart.
Oh yeah, and he just
about wrestling.
He doesn't give a shit what you think.
That too, yeah.
Here's my opinion. Basically, hey, you're listening to me. You're gonna listen to my opinion.
Yeah.
But
and yeah, he can still certainly do a match. I mean, Tommy can too. I mean,
Tommy still does.
Tommy still does. Well, yeah, I know he's taking a little sabbatical right now because I think.
And Bully does too.
I think Tommy had something happen. I don't know, like I don't know if it was like his mom passed away. Something happened, and he's like was whatever this was. And if I'm wrong about the person, I'm really sorry because that's not good. But I know somebody passed away like the day before what was his last match recently on an Impact pay-per-view, and he did the match, like when they were certainly like go home or whatever, and he was like, no, this is where I need to be so that I can not lose my mind. And then after that, he was like, I'm taking some time off, and he hasn't wrestled since then. Obviously, he'll be back.
Yeah.
But,
so Tommy could still do it.
yeah.
I listened to Bully right after Dynamite last week because he does a busted open dart live Dynamite review, like immediately when the show goes off, and was curious about the ECW part of it because of who he is.
Right.
And he brought up this one that there's one other ECW person you can bring in. He can't have a match, and it's the Sandman. And he said the thing is, the Sandman is nothing but
have to have a match.
No, he said the Sandman's nothing but an entrance. And
then
he's
a
like,
kendo stick shot.
His idea was bring Sandman in, get an edgier Jungle Boy to take the kendo stick and beat the shit out of Sandman.
In Wembley. What if they did the Sandman entrance in Wembley?
So.
And they let it go for like 3 or 4 minutes. And then, Perry gets the thing and just bludgeons him with it. And it's like the match doesn't even start. I think that would be, I love that idea.
Yeah, so because Sandman can't have a match, even in his prime, he didn't have the best matches. I mean, he was a kendo stick.
But that wasn't the point. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an entrance in the kendo stick. But yeah,
I think that would be a wonderful idea. I would love that.
Let Jack just wear him out. Interrupt when he comes to the ring. Interrupt the last part of the entrance. Grab the stick and just beat the hell out of him.
Or just get him in the crowd, like as Sandman's standing like this or whatever. Just pull it from behind him and just start wailing on him.
And then you can bring Hook back in to it because he's the son of an ECW guy. All right, enough's enough. This is me and you, not ECW and my dad's legacy. That's company deal.
Well, so in that case, when are they going to bring in Tyler Fullington?
They got to be careful with this road they're on. There's only some. I mean, if they go down the ECW rabbit hole fully, then.
Well, do you know who I'm talking about?
Who'd you say?
Tyler Fullington. It's Sandman's son.
Oh,
he was involved in angles in ECW back in the 90s as like a 10-year-old, and some of them were extreme.
Yeah, I remember.
I was kidding, but I was just thinking he's probably like in his 40s now or something. But
and I agree with Bully. They gotta be careful going down the ECW who they bring in because I mean, there's only so many that can do anything at this point. If they go about it right, it could be done good, even right now in 2023.
Yeah.
But it is a slippery slope, though, at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the end result is always going to be Hook. Any ECW person that comes in is just going to get destroyed by Jack Perry. I mean, Jack's very much still finding himself as a heel. I feel like he's improving.
Yep.
His look is getting better. He's carrying himself better. The first couple of weeks and some of the promos were not very good, in my opinion. But the match with RVD was good. His heel mannerisms in the match were good, and he is definitely improving.
I like that they gave the ref bump in an ECW rules match because that's what allowed RVD to pin him for like 10 seconds, but no referee. So it was like RVD would have won. So it still keeps the allure of an RVD legend.
Right. And it helped that RVD was in great shape and could still do a lot of his signature spots. I mean,
again, it's amazing what weed does for the body.
Clearly.
He's a walking testament for that.
Well, and I think it's his stretching. I mean, he basically is like the best stretcher in wrestling history. I think that is what has kept him limbered up, for lack of a better term, to where his body's not stiffening him up on him as he's getting older after all the beatings he's been through.
But yeah, I definitely wanted to bring up the RVD thing.
Yeah, no, I'll be interested. I'm glad Jerry Lynn didn't do a match because his.
Well, I'm glad he even mentioned why he can't.
Well, yeah, because obviously, not everybody knows. Certainly, I'm just glad that they didn't try to do that, and that hey, Jerry Lynn got some microphone time, so he was involved a little bit. But please don't try to do something physical. I would be terrified watching that after everything that I've read.
Well, he even said himself like why he can't, all of this, all of that. So they gave the reason why. So there's no like this could happen. It's like no. And
I don't think they ever really were pointing towards it happening anyway. It's
But so what do you have next from the show for you?
Well, so in between our 2 weeks of Dynamite and Collision with SummerSlam,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I watched it. I thought it was really good. I mean, I don't really know what else to say other than it was really good. I mean, obviously, I know we spend the majority of our time talking about AEW, but Triple H has done such a good job of building people and booking it. He's basically won me back. I mean, I'm not going to ever watch a 3-hour Raw. I'm not going to, that'd be a lie. But the big shows and the pay-per-views, I'll definitely watch because the matches are built up too well. They're such good performers that they're going to have a good match anyway. It's been like that for years. The built up well part is new. The guys who we like are actually pushed as stars. I mean, SummerSlam was good. I mean, Cody versus Brock.
I was shocked.
After Cody lost at WrestleMania, I was like, man, they fucked up. They're going to need to do something big. They did a big Brock feud where Cody actually came out the winner, and then Brock, who I assume is going home for a while, shook his hand and gave him the endorsement and everything. And I know Hunter said that wasn't planned. I don't know if I believe that or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brock went above and beyond what they asked him to do in saying, like, look, this is your dude right here. Cheer for him. I got to go.
So small detail that makes me think that it's true what Hunter said. The whole time that's happening, they never turned the music off to have the crowd reaction. Cody's music was still playing.
Very good observation.
Cody's music was playing.
That's a good observation.
Because normally if they wanted you to hear the crowd reaction for something, they would turn the music off.
No, you're complete. Yeah. Well, then, hey, planned or not, I thought it worked out great because now Cody came out of that show. It's like, all right, well, which title do you want to go for? Because you get first dibs.
Mm-hmm.
So, Roman beat Jey Uso when Jimmy turned on him. I thought that was kind of a...
Apparently Roman got hurt.
Yeah, so what did he hurt? You told me that.
His back, it was on when he took that tope.
His what did?
His back. When he took the tope when he was leaning against the guardrail.
So, like, is he injured, or is he just, like, hurting really bad? It's not like he, like, cracked a vertebrae or something, is it?
No, not like that, but it's enough to where he's not advertised for a while.
Well, shit, he probably wasn't going to wrestle a match for at least until November anyway. Like, not even kidding.
I actually thought that the Ricochet Paul match was good. Logan Paul,
I did too.
He has absolutely no business being as good as he is.
No, and he's a great heel. I'm glad they're not trying to do him as a babyface anymore. And I heard that apparently after the match, he did successfully make it to his brother's boxing match so he could walk out to the ring with him still wearing his wrestling gear, which that is a feat right there. That's when you know you're rich as shit, when you can actually pull that off. But yeah, no, I mean, Ricochet looked great in the match, which I guess that was a stupid thing to say because when does he not? But I was just happy to see Ricochet actually get a singles match on a show like SummerSlam. I know Hunter is a fan of Ricochet. I really hope that Ricochet is not going to be WWE World Champion, but I hope that he is at least put into a spot where he can genuinely have good matches and at least mid to higher level storylines going because, I mean, I thought his team with Braun Strowman was actually starting to pick up steam and they need more tag teams. I think Braun is injured, but no, you're right. The story there is that Logan Paul is a freak and that should not be anywhere near. I mean,
there's people who wrestle their whole lives. He should be able
to do what he does.
No, there's people who wrestle their whole lives
and never get anywhere near that point.
So hats off to him. I think he found what he.
I thought the finish to that match sucked, though. That was my only problem. Some random ass guy slid some brass knuckles on the Logan Paul hand. Obviously, one of his entourage, but I don't feel like they're going to come out and say who that was. Like, if they were going to do that, do it someone who is in the entourage, but maybe is actually a wrestler who can be attached. Like someone from NXT who they want to bring up that we don't know about, but maybe has potential, can be in his entourage and can be like one of his goons. But instead, it was just a random guy who I bet never gets mentioned again. So I enjoyed that match too, but the finish brought it down for me. I mean, it was a heel doing heel things, but he could have done something different. Rolled him up, put his feet on the ropes, whatever. But I didn't like the random person with the brass knuckles.
Well, the other takeaway from SummerSlam was Becky and Trish getting cut.
which seems like the dumbest thing because it was an 8-match show that went over 4 hours. How you can't fit one more match on there? I mean, and look,
looking at it, they should have cut Ronda and Shayna and put Trish and Becky on.
I mean, Ronda's dropped dramatically since.
I heard this was her last match. Like basically, she's done.
That does not surprise me, and I think it's cool that she put over Shayna as strong as she did. She's her friend, and Shayna's going to stay around, and I think Shayna Baszler's good. I didn't think that match was very good because they didn't explain what the rules were. I didn't understand how people were supposed to win. It was like an MMA fight, but you knock somebody down and they're doing a standing 8 count. So it was like a mixture of a wrestling match, an MMA fight, and a boxing match.
They wanted to do a work shoot. Think of Brawl for All.
They should have just done one of those Lion's Den matches in the little circular cage that they used to use back in the day. That would have made more sense.
I mean, they've used that thing in NXT.
They used it with Seth and Matt Riddle at Extreme Rules.
Yep.
Last year. It's
that,
sitting right there in the warehouse.
That would have made more sense. But, yeah, Becky and Trish getting cut. I mean, I wonder. So you bring back a legend like Trish, Hall of Famer, all this, and then you're going to cut her from
the most over woman in the company history, basically.
And
that was a match I wanted to see.
And after this many months of a story build, you're going to cut them from this. I just
wonder if somebody got a last-second injury.
The
match is taking place tonight, right? Because right now it's Monday.
Yeah, and they said they're doing that because it's in Canada. With Trish. Canada. They were trying to
find to it than this. No, I get it, and that's going to make the show, and that's probably going to pop.
Becky was pissed.
Oh, I know, and they even played her lemon stuff into Raw the next night or 2 nights later. I would be pissed if I were her too. Like, how can you justify that? I don't. I understand that Ronda is probably getting paid a lot more than Becky, but that's a really fucked up way if that's your decision. But okay, here's the other thing.
That's an easy way to make somebody not re-sign a contract and go to the competitor.
Dude, Jay versus Roman was like over 30 minutes. And while I do feel with that being the biggest storyline the company's had in so long that it wasn't should have main evented, but they could have taken 10 minutes off of that match and even had a 5-minute Becky Trish match to get it on the card and maybe have a shitty finish. So then in Canada, they can have their 20-minute match where it's good. But yeah, I was not a fan of that decision.
I did like Seth and Finn.
Yeah. So I turned on the show after it was already going, and the match that was coming up when I turned it on was not that, but it was Drew and Gunther, which is probably what I was looking forward to the most. And I thought that was a great match, but it didn't quite reach my expectations, which were probably too high after the triple threat match they had at WrestleMania that was 5 stars for me all day. But that was still a very good match, right?
No
surprise, Gunther won, and he's going to pass the Honky Tonk Man.
Now, this is obviously it won't happen, but imagine with how hard Gunther hits going against a Brody King or a Dax Harwood.
Imagine the way he hits going against the Honky Tonk Man and giving him a chop through his Elvis outfit and fucking ripping it.
Yeah, Gunther already came out and said he wants no part of a segment with Honky Tonk Man. He said it won't do any good.
He could just beat the shit out of him and be done with it.
He came out and said it won't do any good. There's no point in doing this.
I think it. Yeah, I mean, would it be a big deal? No. For me, it would be cool just because Honky Tonk Man, he was one of the guys when I started. So I know he's a horrible wrestler, but he always hits the nostalgia button for me. So
I think Gunther's a great one to have break the record finally because
I think Gunther's still got a lot. He's still going to be that champion for another till at least WrestleMania. And then, yeah, like I think you said, once he loses it, he needs to move into the title picture no matter who's champion.
Lose it in a 3-way so he's protected. So then he can just move on.
And then after WrestleMania, maybe they could do Cody and Gunther for the Universal title. Who knows? I know that's a lot of booking in my mind, but get to that point. But
I don't imagine Gunther winning the Rumble after the performance he had last year. Win the Rumble and go against Seth.
I think he would be one of the top 3 or 4 candidates this year, depending on who's in there. But yeah, so then you brought it up. I just wanted to briefly touch on that match. But after that was Seth and Balor, and I watched that live. And I watched Money in the Bank, and obviously Hunter is a big fan of Finn Balor because he pushes him 10 times harder than Vince ever did. And I think Balor has been doing the best promos of his life. That face-to-face promo he did with Rollins was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was real. I mean, it was real. You know what I mean? And everything,
I love the paint with the sun.
Such a good detail. He painted it right down where the scar would have been.
Seth coming out with the jacket he wore 7 years ago.
Everything was great. Like, I actually had written down, how did the Judgment Day suddenly get so over? But as we're saying this stuff, it's like, well, because there's this cool shit here, this cool shit here. And we're not even accounting for the fact that Dominic is like the biggest heel in the world right now.
Dominic is the biggest heel.
Women's wrestler in the world. So
yeah, you got Dominic as the biggest heel, Rhea being Rhea, Priest, who with his performance,
a future world champion.
Well, Priest with his performance with Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico is really, I think, what took him to the next level in the eyes of the brass.
Agreed.
While he lost the match, Bunny went over, but Priest got over, and more importantly, he got over with the decision makers because from what I heard, they were all like, "Holy shit! Like you just helped make this happen against somebody who doesn't do this."
Yeah, and if his reward is he gets a world title run, I hope that it's not just like brief. I hope he gets a real one, but well, I guess we have 2 world titles now, so It's not like he has to beat Roman. I still think Roman's going to drop the belt to Cody at WrestleMania.
Well, he's still got the Money in the Bank case too.
No, I know. So Seth wins the match. Obviously during the match, he wanted to call him Punishment Martinez because that was his name in Ring of Honor. But he tries to get Seth to use the briefcase. Balor. Balor does not and ends up getting his head stomped into it. Some of those near falls at the end really got me. Like at that point, the match was already good because Balor and Rollins aren't going to have a bad match no matter what. Nope. And usually when interference starts, it takes it down a notch for me. But with the briefcase, it made so much sense that I enjoyed it. And I thought that was a very good match. And
it's been
Balor came out of it looking good too.
Well, think of the last pay-per-view, or the last thing with Seth and Finn. The briefcase came in with Priest standing outside. It was after Money in the Bank when Priest was standing there with the contract. So, I mean, it's a detail they've had ingrained from the beginning. So, hey, good job of sticking with the detail.
So, I wonder if, since Judgment Day has become pretty popular, are Balor and Martinez actually going to have a clash and break up the group? Is Balor going to get thrown out? Is Martinez going to get thrown out and replaced with JD McDonough or whatever? I mean, and they'd have to get another big guy in there for something, but I don't know where it's going. So I take that as a good thing because I think it's kind of cool. It's not the Bloodline storyline and it's still pretty good. So goes back to what I was saying, that Hunter, he's clearly knows what he's doing because, he's at least getting us interested. So, and the only other thing I had written down about SummerSlam was that the main event, I mean, it was good, certainly. I don't think there was ever any question who was going to win.
No.
I thought it was a little bit cliche that Jimmy was the one who turned on Jay, because I really don't really want to see a Jimmy versus Jay feud. I hope that doesn't turn out like when Matt and Jeff had their first.
Oh, Matt Hardy he even came out and said that's very WWE-ish.
Of course. And I thought the match was very long. And I know that the Roman title matches are a big deal and they're very much storytelling matches and they're talking in the ring and you can hear them on the microphone and all that is great. But I don't feel like they needed to go 35 minutes or whatever it was. You could have easily taken 10 minutes off of there. Hell, take 5 minutes off somewhere else. You got 15 minutes for Trish and Becky. So 5 minutes for entrances, 10-minute match.
Yep.
Solves your problem right there. You're still within 4 hours. But overall, I thought SummerSlam was really good.
I did too.
WWE doesn't really have bad pay-per-views anymore. Let's put it that way. Some are better than others.
It's just everything. It's just everything in between.
Yeah, I just wish that, and I guess KO is injured, but I wish Sammy had done something on the show. But at least he's still involved in the storyline now, kind of against Judgment Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was. Yeah. Okay. Judgment Day's over. Who would have thought?
Dirty Dom.
Was there anything else from SummerSlam that you wanted to bring up?
No. Finish it out with the last week of AEW.
Yeah, so
I
know we've already talked about MJF and Cole a lot. Obviously, they did their thing in the ring this past week where MJF thought maybe he wanted a promo battle. And what did he say? You're so pale. You're so pale, ghostly white that if it was the 80s, Hogan would have snorted you or something like that. I thought that was great.
Mighty.
That was great. I bet Hulk Hogan was even sitting at home chuckling about that one.
When he said that, I died. I literally laughed out loud.
I just love that. I love the Roddy Strong stuff. He comes out with the neck brace and he's like, but Adam, are you going to let him talk to me like that? Like he comes off as such a bitch, like the jealous ex-girlfriend, which is what they called him out as.
Yep.
And so I fully believe the end result could end up being that maybe the Kingdom is reformed, Adam Cole as their leader with Roddy Strong, Matt Taven, and Mike Bennett and Maria. But obviously I think that would still be at least a few weeks, if not months down the line. But I think Roddy Strong has done a very good job in his small part of the storyline, and it's been effective. And I've always liked Roderick Strong. I'm just glad that he's in the Eddie Kingston. He's in the camp of people that I didn't think were ever going to get a true shot on TV, and I'm very happy to see that they are.
I think if they're going to try to get Cole back in the group, I mean, obviously they don't see him as part of the Elite. Or like don't bring up the Bullet Club stuff when they were together at any point. Fish isn't there. Apparently, Riley's going to be out even longer than they expected. So
really, he had major surgery. So
that's really the Kingdom is all right. Here's people he's known to be associated with. You're just not a far-fetched thing.
And they've already put the teaser out there with Taven going to Roddy and being like, Cole always forgets who his real friends are and stuff like that. So if that ends up happening, it would make perfect sense. I'm not convinced that Cole turns on MJF. I'm not convinced MJF turns on Cole. I'm not convinced that they don't team together for another 6 months. I'm curious and I want to see where it goes. So, I mean, that's the fact that I have no idea what's going to happen, but I want to know tells you all you need to know.
We also got the Young Bucks versus the Hardys.
Yes, which was that even advertised?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that.
As the Bucks return to the tag team division. It was as good as a 2023 Bucks and Hardys match could possibly be.
I enjoyed it. It was a good match. I mean, obviously that was 99% because of the Young Bucks, but Jeff looked okay. I mean, Matt is not physically capable of looking okay anymore, but Jeff looked fine.
Did you catch the 3D? The Bucks hit the 3D on the Hardys.
Well, I guess you're right. They did. Well, I mean, it makes sense to start.
And that was another thing. I wanted to listen to the Bully Ray.
I was saying, did Bully Ray make a comment about that?
Oh yeah.
What did he say?
He absolutely loved it. He said,
"I'm gonna say it made sense."
Well, what he said was
brother teams.
Well, he said they hit it as perfectly as you could hit it. He said he even gave him hats off, kudos. But then he threw in his little. But nobody kicks out of the real 3D. But no, he was praising him because he said like the way it came off, like
and it was totally logical. I mean,
it wasn't like they did a piss poor version of it. They got him up, and I mean it looked good.
No, I mean with the Hardys and the Bucks, it's always who's the best brother tag team. I know obviously Devon and Bubba were not really brothers, but they were brothers in storyline. So if you want to go start busting out tag moves of other brother teams, it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I mean for me. I liked it. Obviously, there are older matches like at the Ring of Honor show before.
Well, that ladder match, yeah, that's like the last great Hardy Boys match, I believe. So I'm not including the cinematic stuff because I know that's totally different. The last great in-ring match.
Shit. Oh wait, we're talking Dynamite. Never mind. I was about to say shit. Speaking of cinematic.
Oh, so okay, well. Look, so what we're talking about was a few days after this. You're talking about the parking lot brawl.
No.
Oh.
I'm talking about what they advertised for Jeff Jarrett and oh God. Basically, it's a Texas chain. It might be
the chainsaw match.
Yeah.
I saw Okay, you're right. This came up during Collision when they were running down the Dynamite for this week, because this week's Dynamite is a Fight for the Fallen episode, right? Where all the proceeds go
because I'm trying to pull up.
Who is that against? I saw the graphic and it was mixed in with so many graphics that it was almost like it didn't register in my mind. But you're right.
That's what I'm trying.
I mean, he already did the Tupelo concession stand brawl with Mark Briscoe, and Mark's injured, so it can't be him anyway.
It's Jeff Jarrett versus Jeff Hardy.
Oh my God, are you serious? Holy shit.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
How did I not catch that? Okay.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match.
And that's this Wednesday, right?
Yes, it is.
At Fight for the Fallen.
Yep.
Well, I can't say I'm not a little bit interested in that, so
What the hell is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre death match?
I think so. I'm pretty sure I do remember. I don't know why I remember this, but I don't remember seeing Jeff Hardy. But on the graphic, it said something about it was like promoting a Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game that's coming out. I believe that's the tie-in.
Jeff Hardy in a death match is a scary thought.
Yeah, but he's in there with Jeff Jarrett. I mean, I don't think Jeff Jarrett's going to let Jeff Hardy jump on him from a 30-foot ladder. Now, he might move and Jeff can just go through the ground or whatever, but if nothing else, that will be interesting.
But when you said cinematic, that's the next thing I went to.
But that's not even a cinematic match, though, is it?
But there's just some crazy, bizarre shit.
Did you watch the parking lot brawl?
Oh, you mean the Bloodfest?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was something. Do you think they did all that in one take, or do you think they edited it together?
One take.
I bet you're right, which is absolutely
insane. Because how else are you going to, in between takes, how are you going to get the blood to look the same?
No, you're not. That's why I was pretty sure that that's the case. I mean, what do you say? Again, I already said that I'm worried for Trent. He's going to end up breaking his neck again. I mean, I don't worry about Moxley bleeding because I think he clearly has an unlimited supply of blood, so it's no big deal.
His head's going to look like Abdullah the Butcher before it's said and done.
And I bet he will wear that as a major mark of pride and show it off. And Claudio, I mean, he always looks awesome. I mean, Claudio looks great when he's got stuff like trucks and cars to use to bang people off of. Or I just hope that they gimmick the glass on Sue's van.
Oh, they can pay for it.
No, gimmick, as in
Mox ain't gonna let no gimmick shit. Come on now.
I don't want to go through a windshield.
You mentioned it earlier, so I'll let you talk about it. The Jericho stuff.
So, I really enjoyed the Jericho segment, and I feel like I know I've been bringing up the Jericho stuff each week, so that tells me that I'm a little more interested in this than you are. So, I've said I want to see Jericho go with Don Callis, and I want them to redo the Heenan family or whatever, and Jericho would be the centerpiece of it. Think of Mr. Perfect or Rick Rude, or if Rick Rude was ever really the centerpiece, Harley Race, whatever. Going way back. So they have it was basically like an intervention, right? Each person goes around and talks about the JAS. I thought, because as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, the whole point of this stable was to level these guys up. Jericho is top tier God level no matter what. It doesn't matter what he does. Definitely. But he is, there's so many people in the company that he has helped level up that it's just a continuation of that. So what? Daniel Garcia goes first. Cuts a great promo. Daniel Garcia could not cut a promo when he started in AEW. He was like Darby. Great matches, no promos. Clearly, he's been working with Jericho because it was good. And he just said, fuck it, I'm out of here.
Then he danced his way off.
Yes, which was a perfect little touch to end it. And now I bet he'll go back to being a little bit more of a serious wrestler, he'll throw that dance in every now and then just to piss people off. So then it was, what was it? Tay Mello after that saying she was sick and it wasn't even because of the baby. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she was out. I thought it was funny that she left and Sammy was still standing there, but
she was more over before Sammy and the JAS.
Dude, JAS has hurt her popularity. Daniel Garcia, it has helped. Tay Mello, it has not. Being involved with Sammy has hurt her that was where she was starting to get over as a babyface. Now,
Yeah, because it
they're
came out.
married and they're having a baby, so I'm sure they're happy, and that's what counts. But as far as in ring, she was getting over, and that fell off a cliff.
Yeah,
so this angle has not helped her at all.
Nope.
It has hurt. So then Anna Jay, again, who she's barely been involved in the angle anyway. I wouldn't say it did anything for her one way or the other. She was gone.
Daddy Magic.
Daddy Magic was the best. I love Daddy Magic. I enjoy when he talks about what makes his nipples hard. I think it's hilarious for some reason. But when he said the line that I grew up a Chris Jericho fan, I spent my first paycheck on a Chris Jericho shirt, I have no doubt that that is true. He's from Canada. In the year 2000 or whatever, he's probably right about my age. So he was about 16 or something on his first job. Talked about, you could tell he was actually about to get choked up when he was talking about how his wife was 8 months pregnant and he was out of a job, and Jericho helped him get in and let him go in his house, and they became friends. Like, it genuinely looked like it was hurting him to say he had to do that. And then so when he left, it had that much more of an impact. Angelo Parker, he did a good promo too. Not as good, and I was still thinking about Matt Menard when he did it, so I apologize. I don't remember exactly what he said, other than he always gave everything for Jericho, but Jericho never gave anything back, something along those lines. And then Sammy, which I thought this was an interesting wrinkle. Instead of Sammy just being like the next one to go, he's like, because he has the most history with Jericho. Oh, no, I missed Jake Hager, who I guess technically he has the most history, but he's such a part-time character. I did like that he threw in. I really did like that hat though. But then he was out, though his reasoning wasn't quite as good as the rest. But Sammy says, "Hey, we're friends. I might be here if you get your shit together." That tells me that they're going to feud down the line, and I think it was always planned that at some point they do Sammy and Jericho. They've been teaming up off and on since AEW started.
Yep.
Literally that first night.
Yep.
So I thought that was a really good angle. And next week they say that Jericho's got an answer for Don Callis. I feel like just a straight up yes would be a little too obvious. There's going to be some kind of a twist, but I think Jericho is still going to end up aligned with him.
It's either that or he's going to be solo.
And right. And no clue if this happens, but I keep hearing rumors that they're going to do Ospreay and Jericho in Wembley, which I think that would be awesome. I would love to have that. But if that's the case, Jericho has to be a heel because Ospreay is going to be the biggest babyface in the entire arena for that night. But I would like to see that match and tie in Don Callis with the way he was interconnected with Ospreay during the Omega stuff, and you can make it make sense.
Yeah.
And I know that when Jericho spent time in New Japan, he specifically said that he really enjoyed hanging out with Will Ospreay. Like they would go out and do karaoke and get drunk and have a good time. So I think they became friends, and Jericho would probably stick his neck out and put Ospreay over and get him on a card like that for a big win on a big show, because Jericho, that's what he does. He makes other people get better. I mean, not like Ospreay can get that much better, but still, Jericho clean in front of 85,000 people in his home country would be pretty career-defining moment in a year that's been pretty massive for Will Ospreay. Because I don't think they're going to do Omega and Ospreay 3 at Wembley, even though I think it would have been an incredible match. I think that's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom next year.
Yeah, I think that's what Japan.
And Ospreay will win,
and that's going to be the payback for them winning him. For,
Yeah, exactly.
And I like the amount of time apart because then it makes you want it more.
Yeah, it's too soon for the next one anyway. Even though seeing that in front of that many people would have been amazing, it would have been too soon. Yeah, you got
to keep it special.
Yes. But also, who says you can only have 3? I mean, they might do one at Wrestle Kingdom, and then hell, maybe they do it again at Forbidden Door next year. I don't think anybody's going to complain if that's the case.
No,
unless our other option is like Omega versus Okada again or something like that. Then I might complain. But no, so I'm very interested in the Jericho stuff, where it's going. I love Don Callis. Hell, we were talking about ECW earlier. I really first got introduced to Callis when he was doing color commentary for ECW when they were on pay-per-view from 99 through 2001. And he became my favorite color commentator at that time. And when he came back to the wrestling world, about 6 years ago, to be color for New Japan as basically like the Bobby Heenan to Kenny Omega to Nick Bockwinkel or Mr. Perfect, where he's like his manager almost, but he's on commentary and he's completely biased. Loved all that shit. Don Callis doesn't do stuff in wrestling that is not entertaining. And he's brought Impact back from the death. Him and Scott D'Amore, I want to give credit to both of them. And Jimmy Jacobs, too. I know he's not there anymore, but Jimmy was a big part. They've made it to where I have considered watching Impact several times. I could not have said that a single time in the last 15 years. And I'm going off on a tangent, but I was just talking about I'm interested in what's going on there because stuff with Jericho and Callis is extremely good. Obviously, you're going to mix in Omega, only makes it better. Then you're going to mix in Takeshita. I'm assuming that they're going to do Omega and Takeshita at Wembley. And I bet Omega is going to put Takeshita over strong because Takeshita is on an upward trajectory. I was thinking before that, hell, he's going to end up being a massive star in Japan. He might not go back to Japan. He might be a massive star here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving him. I mean, and the company does because he's not just an incredibly talented Japanese wrestler, but he's a big dude with a great look, and he's young and still learning. And, dude, he's got Don Callis. If he's working matches with Kenny Omega, there's no way he goes back to DDT. He is so far above that. DDT and Noah are owned by the same company, right? So he could go back and immediately be the top guy in Noah. I almost feel like that is below him at this point. And short of him going back and being a top guy in New Japan, nothing would stand up to what he's currently doing in the United States.
No, you're right.
But a lot would have to happen for him to be able to be signed by New Japan but short and sweet is Takeshita. I like a lot. He is like a lot of 90s Japanese wrestlers that I love almost combined together to make this awesome combination. And throw in like a little bit of I don't know, Kevin Nash because of his height and because of wearing his leather jacket like Diesel and all this stuff. Maybe that's not a good comparison, but
well, what else from Dynamite did you have?
So Sting and Darby versus Swerve and Fox was made official. I thought another great promo by Darby.
Yep.
Comes out, cuts the promo. Very, very good. Oh, what was the one line he had? I forgot to write it down. He had one line that was great. It'll probably come to me at some point. And of course, telling AR Fox, tell him the whole story. I tried to call you, blah, blah, blah. I am a little tired of storylines being based around somebody calling or not calling, because it's impossible not to be able to get in touch with people in real life nowadays unless you don't own a phone. Besides that, that's my only hole in the story. Everything else
unless you're the person that gets messages, notifications, and doesn't check them, and you have 12,000 emails and text and all.
I guess that's possible, but I think that, again, great promo by Darby, and of course it leads to the lights go out, and there's Sting, and we got a big standoff with Sting and
Swerve.
And Swerve, which Swerve looked like he belonged.
Yep.
I'm going to keep saying it. I feel like when Swerve first came into AEW, I was like, this dude needs to be pushed to the top, and he wasn't. Him and Keith Lee made a very good tag team. They've still never blown that off for some reason, which I'm not quite sure why. I have a feeling that Keith Lee's health is not where it needs to be, and that's why we're not seeing him much. And when we are, it's tag matches, which I hope I'm wrong. But I have a bad feeling that that's the case. Otherwise, we would have seen an epic Strickland versus Keith Lee match at one of these pay-per-views. But Strickland has leveled up just as much as Darby. And if those two were fighting over the world title in a year, I would not be surprised at all. So I can't say enough good stuff about Swerve, Darby, hell, anybody involved in this storyline at this point. Everybody's doing good. I think the coffin match is going to be crazy. People are going to go nuts for it. I just hope Sting doesn't hurt himself really badly. As long as that doesn't happen, it's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you have anything else for Dynamite? That was all I had.
No,
It was a good show. I said earlier that I didn't feel like the main event really made sense as a main event. It was a good match to have on the show, but I mean, hell, you could have done the main event of the Young Bucks and the Hardy Boys. I don't know. I mean, I know the main point of that match was for the Bucks to then cut the promo and FTR come out and get in their faces and they make the match official. And I didn't even really have to say anything because, I mean, you don't have to say anything.
Nope.
Put together a 5-minute video package on that whole history, and everybody's going to want to watch that.
Yep. No, last thing I got is just Collision.
Yeah, so Collision, that was 2 nights ago. We're relatively caught up, which is not that common. I thought it was a really good show again.
Oh yeah, I did too. Joe is the big takeaway for me this week. Him and House of Black, man. That's just 3 dudes I don't want to find in a dark alley. They are, God almighty, scary looking.
So yeah, and Collision was in Greensboro, my hometown. The last time they were in Greensboro was the Dynamite right before Christmas of 2021, where they did Sting, Punk, and Darby versus FTR and MJF. And Sting wore his Punk face paint and Punk wore his Sting face paint. And I was there, like, I don't know, just off the floor. So I had a very great seat. And definitely I didn't think I was ever going to see Punk wrestle live again. 2, I didn't think I was going to see Sting wrestle live again after the last WCW pay-per-view I went to 26 years ago. But I got to see them both. And I remember that was pretty awesome. That's one of the better Dynamite moments for me. But so the match, and I know that's the main event. There's more in the show, but that was probably the most important. Well,
no, I would say second most. Big thing, Ricky Starks starting the show.
Okay, fine. Let's go there.
This is where we said that this is where the payoff for his thing with Punk was, because that promo was great.
He was angry.
He looked pissed. And people were cheering him. And like, you almost felt like the people thought, oh shit, like this is real. And the way he talked, the way he was like, no, this is mine. Y'all push me. You could tell it sounded like he was talking to TK and the executives. Like, and Ricky looked like he was talking to Tony and the execs and everybody. Like, you keep pushing me down and I keep coming back. I mean, he looked pissed off, looked angry, and it came off great.
It did come off great. If that is the end result, that we've got pissed off Ricky Starks, again, kind of straddling the line between heel and babyface, but cutting promos like that, I'm all for it. I mean, That promo started, and honestly, it actually started a little slow for me, but it was after like once Tony kind of pried a little bit, Ricky just blew up, and the intensity, and I mean, I know it's cliche to say he had the crowd in the palm of his hand, but I mean, geez.
But he did.
He did. I mean, that was how to cut a promo to bounce back from a big loss 101 and look bigger than you did before the loss even took place. Let's put it that way.
I'm just curious where they go with him next. I know they're doing this manager thing, but I'm just curious, how does this play out?
They're doing what again?
Saying that basically where he was suspended for 30 days.
Oh, right. But he's a manager, right. So they didn't say of who, did they?
Nope.
I don't know where that's going.
We had Joe squash somebody.
Oh, wait, no, he didn't just squash somebody. He squashed Greensboro, North Carolina's own Andrew Everett. Hometown boy.
I couldn't remember who it was.
He is an indie wrestler. I don't know if he actually lives in Greensboro, but I first started seeing him along with Cameron Grimes as Trevor Lee and Cedric Alexander, and those 3 at a little tiny independent promotion outside of Greensboro where they might be able to fit like 100 people in there. And Andrew Everett and Trevor Lee were the 2 top guys for quite a while. At one point, they had a 60-minute Ironman match that was like off the charts. But and they all went to PWG at the same time. Obviously, Trevor Lee has gone on to WWE now, and Cedric has too, even though he's basically an enhancement talent. But Andrew Everett ended up blowing out his knee around that time, and he didn't make the ascension with those other guys. And because his whole style is completely based around high flying, because I've seen him do like 720s and crazy stuff. Like, it took him a long time to get back, and his career has fallen behind dramatically because of that. So I was glad to see him on TV, but obviously he's basically like a nameless, faceless jobber who got killed by Joe. But still, if he got his foot in the door and he's healthy, he's good enough that he could be a member of the roster, maybe in a tag team. I mean, he's not gonna like,
or he could be a Ring of Honor then.
Yeah, perfect. Ring of Honor. He was already in Ring of Honor in years past as like a lower level character anyway before he got hurt. But
so he can go back to Ring
that
of
wasn't
Honor.
the point of that match, obviously. But I did want to throw a shout out to my buddy Andrew Everett.
But yeah,
Joe killed him.
And then Joe, to me, cuts a great promo. I just watched the entire series of Twisted Metal that Joe was in.
Oh, okay. Which is on Peacock, ironically enough.
Which I cannot. Every time he talks now, all I think of is Sweet Tooth.
I've never seen Twisted Metal was a video game back in the 90s.
Yep.
Of like bumper cars, basically. Okay.
He did great in that show. But now every time I hear him talk, I just think, hey, there's Sweet Tooth.
That'd be a great character.
It's
not one they have the rights to, but still.
Promo was great. Like,
yes.
And the way he put it, the way he worked, like at that point, I instantly was like, he's coming back out tonight.
When he said, what did he say? I gave you the courtesy of asking first. So
at that point, I was like,
of course, played into later during the trios match.
I was like, he's coming back.
Punk got choked out. I don't know if the camera missed it on the first go on purpose or not, but
the way they did it, though, to me is a detail of the way they did the choke out.
Like they didn't show it on purpose.
Well, they ended up showing it on TV, but they did it where Joe grabbed Punk with the ref's back turn and then had him on the ground under the barricade, so like the ref couldn't see to call a DQ.
Wow, that is a very good point. That's an attention to detail that I've had a major problem, not with AEW, well, sometimes with AEW, mostly with New Japan, with the incompetent referees.
Oh, AEW is horrible at it.
AEW is usually horrible, but that is a case where
you take it out of their control. Take it out of the ref deal.
Yeah, that was if they did that on purpose, maybe that means that they are going to start making it to where the referees don't all come off as complete.
Well, you also have Joe and Punk, the ones involved in it, so that probably had a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I thought that match was awesome. I didn't think there was any chance that House of Black was losing the belt. I thought when they did the Punk versus Malachi standoff and the place started buzzing, I was like, okay, now we definitely have to see a singles match here, which is inevitable. I mean, that'll be a collision match in the next couple months, I'm sure.
Well, then the sit down.
Yeah, okay, so that was the best part. What? Punk goes for the GTS, Black gets out, goes for his kick, which I guess it was Black Mass and WWE. I don't think they have a name for it now. Punk sits down out of it right into his – that was a very good spot.
And Malachi, he's just standing there like, what the – and I love the, like, ascent to the face paint for him. Like, it's been a slow start with the eyes, started growing. Now the whole face was white. It's just giving him but the tattoos and the way he looks, it's just very fitting that this dude's batshit crazy that would do this.
Malachi is in that category. Actually, you know what? He's a notch above, in my opinion. Like, he kind of came over similarly to Swerve. Yep. He got cut from WWE. Obviously, that was a Vince thing because I'm pretty sure Hunter loved him some Malachi Black. And if Malachi
made him the champion of NXT, that's all you need to know. Because
he might be world champion in WWE if he had stayed. Malachi has everything. There is no reason why he cannot be the top guy of the top company in the world. And I'm not saying whatever company that is. I hope he stays in AEW.
Well, he came in and squashed Cody.
Right. But what I'm saying is he's got an extremely amazing, unique look. He can cut a great promo. He's an amazing wrestler. He's got a unique style with his Muay Thai stuff thrown in there. You know, has one of the most beautiful looking finishing kicks that you're ever going to see. I feel like he's been underutilized. I mean, I'm glad that they're the trios champions and that they are being focused on Collision. So it seems like every episode I complain about somebody not being utilized a whole lot. And then all of a sudden they're like on a major hot streak, going back to Jay White in our first episode. But Malachi and Punk, that's a big match. I'm sure that will happen. But Malachi is ascending or hell, he was already there, in my opinion. He didn't need ascending like Swerve and Darby did to get to the level they're at. Malachi's there. They just need to pull the trigger on it.
Mm-hmm.
But Brody Lee, too. I mean, hell, all three of those guys could be massive single stars. I think Brody Lee, because he's always protected in those matches, he takes very few bumps and mostly just kills people. Mm-hmm. I think that he's going to have a big run as a monster heel at some point by himself, and he's going to cement himself as a top guy. It might take a couple of years to get to that point, but I do think that Tony is a huge fan, and he sees what we see, and that's going to happen. And Brody King is super young. I think he's maybe like 26 years old or something.
Oh, and like you said, I mean, the match was good. I enjoyed.
The match was very good.
It's
I mean, all those guys aren't going to get together and have a bad match. Let's put it that way. But
right. So yeah, then the big takeaway were the choke. Like I said, that little detail of under the ring area, the barricade.
Yeah.
That it makes it where the ref doesn't look like an idiot.
No, that I did not catch that. I'm glad you did. That was a good catch.
I saw Joe low to the ground and looking up, like seeing almost like, did I get caught?
That's perfect.
So for me, that was the biggie for Collision. I mean, it was all built around those few things. I mean, there's other stuff on the card, yes, but the Christian Luchasaurus stuff.
I thought the Christian versus Darby promo exchange was great because obviously we know Christian's been cutting promos that were great for a long, long time. Darby, this is now the third time we brought him up. He hung with him and looked great. And while I'm not super excited for a Darby Luchasaurus match, I almost feel like I am excited for a Darby Christian match, which is coming up on Dynamite this week.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Darby's going to win, but I mean,
I'm just curious where they're going with this Luchasaurus Christian TNT title thing.
Yeah, that's why. Not so sure about it. That's why I'm thinking maybe Darby wins the belt and then I don't know, has another big match with Christian or something. And then Luchasaurus turns on Christian or something. I don't know. The stuff with Luchasaurus the last year, or going back to when him and Jack Perry split, has been weak at best.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Christian, so he's totally carrying that. I mean, he's literally carrying the belt himself as if he's the champion. Did you notice when they were making the rundown of the Dynamite card and Nigel did that one and he said it'll be Darby versus the TNT title, and he pauses and he just says Maker Christian. It's like they're going as far as they can, but say that it's basically Christian's title, but little details like that.
But we come out of this week knowing we get Omega announcing his All In plans. We're supposed to announce his All In plans.
I'm gonna assume it's Takeshita. If it's something else, I'll be surprised. But
there's another rumor going around. I'm just curious to see if it's true.
Coda?
That it's going to be Takeshita, Jay White, and Juice versus Kenny, Hangman, and Coda.
I think that'd be a great match. I feel like on a card of this magnitude, Kenny Omega should have a singles match.
But then what are you going to do with Hangman?
Hangman can have a singles match too.
Against who? Because you're less than 2 weeks away.
Remember?
I
don't even know if Coda is in. Well, okay, we talked about that before. I forgot he had the glass in his feet. That was why he wasn't doing a lot. I mean, that'd be a great match. Don't. I mean, for sure.
And then
Gold is super over right now from their stuff with FTR. I actually wrote down a line they had in their promo. I did want to bring that up real quick, but yeah, I mean, if that was a match, that's another way to have one, it's going to be a great match, and two, it's going to get people on the card so that people who deserve to be on the card, not just people who are getting a free handout.
So I'm curious in the next week to see what they do with Hangman for All In. This definitely got my curiosity because he seems to be like a forgotten one out of the four right now.
Which I very much hope is not what's happening, because Hangman should be treated as a former world champion that he is, and I don't like the fact that Punk clearly has it out for him. Though I wouldn't rule out the fact that we get a Punk Hangman match at some point.
I mean, they did business before when they weren't happy with each other.
Yeah, I guess.
You got to think Hangman stayed clear of that whole brawl out because he's the only one that suspended.
He was the one who came out like basically feuding with Moxley, or in the mix with Moxley and MJF as like the top of the card coming out of that, with Punk gone and Omega gone and all that. But but the one line, so they did a very quick Bullet Club Gold promo in the back because they're doing Jay and Juice versus the Bucks.
Yep.
And what they say, Jay said, "Don't bring a super kick to a gunfight." It's the Guns versus the Bucks. Yeah, and he said, "Don't bring a super kick to a gunfight." I thought that was clever. That tells me that we'll get Jay White and Juice versus the Bucks eventually, but I mean that could easily be a Collision main event right there down the road, especially once they're needing to stack up the shows against football, because I mean
it's coming.
Can't say enough that they're going to get hurt pretty bad by that.
College football is huge in this country.
Yeah.
Especially.
Was there anything else from Collision that jumped out at you?
That was really the biggest. And now it's just sit and wait for Wednesday. The Omega.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped. So okay, before we wrap this up, because we've been talking for over 2 hours, even though this has been a really good conversation. All In, we got MJF versus Cole for the world title. On the buy-in, we got them challenging Aussie Open, which I know that's all about the angle, but that's 4 incredible wrestlers. That might be an incredible match.
Yeah.
Aussie Open is one of my favorite tag teams going right now. Punk and Joe, most likely. I know it's not official, but obviously they're doing that for the quote real world title. Bucks and FTR is official. If they hadn't just done a 2 out of 3 falls match, I would want this to be that. But in this case, it's a regular match is good.
You got Sting and Darby versus AR.
Coffin match. So that's match. 5. That's going to be your insanity match for the night.
You're going to have a Kenny match.
I'm going to go ahead and just say it's going to be Kenny and Takeshita. Okay, no, let's just say we got 5 matches official. We got a rumored match, Kenny and Takeshita.
Oh, you got the women's 4-way.
Right, okay, and it's – that was kind of a weird setup, but I guess it's Shida defending against Saraya, defending against Toni Storm, defending against the winner of Britt Baker and Sky Blue. So I'm assuming that's going to be Britt Baker, and that's going to be the 4-way. I don't – that is basically putting the most over – I mean, do you think Chris Statlander will have a title defense on the show too? Or I could see that on the 0 hour. But if they only do one women's match, people are going to cry. So am I right?
Yeah.
Look, they're going to cry anyway. But
here's my thing. I can just go on my little rant on this. Obviously, you hear today about like the women's wrestling booking. Like, I'm all for putting them on the show, booking them, to succeed. I'm all for it. What I'm not for are these all women's shows that people are calling for, because at that point, aren't you making them separate instead of including them on the male? Because isn't that doing more harm than good? They want equal
segregation.
treatment.
It's separate but equal.
They want equal treatment with the males. Well, how is a separate show just for women? Now you're just going against. You're not going against them. I don't agree with that part. Like, yes, book them better on the every week shows.
And you can have more than one women's storyline running at a time. And I think the women's storylines they've done the last few months have been horrible. But the thing is, a lot of those women are very good. I mean, if you take Toni Storm, Hikaru Shida, Britt Baker, and Saraya, with Saraya being in her home country, so I'm assuming she's going to probably win the belt. I mean, that's some talent and some star power. That's a good match. And so that makes 6, right?
Yeah. I was just saying they book them better on Dynamite, Collision, Raw, SmackDown. Yes.
Don't shoehorn it in.
Right.
There's no doubt that WWE books the women better than the men. But have you noticed that they actually have done a worse job booking the women since Hunter took over?
Yeah, which is weird.
It is weird. That doesn't.
I wonder if part of it's because Steph's gone, and Steph was actually.
That's very possible. I keep forgetting about that. I'm sure it all plays in. I'm not saying they're being buried, but they don't.
Because obviously Steph had a big deal with the women's division.
Yeah, I mean, at one point it was safe to say that Becky, Bianca, Sasha were like as big a stars as Seth Rollins and people in that.
Yeah, that was just my random. I don't want to see the women only shows. I don't want that because that is actually going.
It's going against. It's counterintuitive.
It's counterproductive of what they are trying to push for. We want to be booked and treated and everything the same. Well, then do it on the same show. It's because if they did an all men's show with 100% nothing but men, they're going to be furious.
I mean, for a long time, that was what wrestling was. But I mean,
yeah, but
I think if we're tying it back to All In, obviously that's a big 4-way that they're probably going to get a good 15 minutes to go balls out on that one. Well, maybe not balls out, but titties out. But
yeah, so we got 6 confirmed matches.
And then I'd say that the rumored matches, at least from what I've heard, and again, I know I mentioned this, I don't know if they were ever going to do Nigel and Bryan Danielson, but the way Nigel's talking, I feel like Nigel was at the very least trying to get something like that, but he hasn't wrestled in so long. I really don't want to see him hurt himself. It's a moot point because Danielson is out injured. But
do you think you get BCC versus Best Friends? And
I hope not. That feels like such a waste of. And I don't dislike the Best Friends. I think they've leveled up to a degree hanging with the BCC.
It just feels like that's the only obvious route to go at that point.
That or you do Mox versus Orange Cassidy for the international title, which Mox does not need to end his reign. That belt's below him. I think that because Eddie Kingston, the G1 finished this weekend, Eddie Kingston is probably getting back home like as we speak, if I had to guess. He's probably going to be back on Dynamite on Wednesday, unless he's so beat up. When Eddie was last there, they're doing tension between him and Moxley, right? We know their history. They had their huge feud, but then they had always been friends. They got back together. Long history. It would be logic. A big match for Mox would be against Eddie. I just am not exactly sure how they get there in storyline, unless it's just they frustrated each other enough that they're like, hey, we'll always be friends, but we got to fight it out.
Eddie can talk his way into a program in one promo.
My only thing was, are they going to do a Ring of Honor World title match? Because I could see Claudio having a title match, and if so, Eddie was the person who was going to get the next title shot, unless Mark Briscoe is healthy and can come over and do it, which I would love that. I could see Eddie versus Claudio, which then again would leave Moxley out without an obvious opponent.
Well, unless they do something with him and, like, say, Penta because of this Death Triangle.
Oh, God, what kind of crazy...
I would be good with a Mox and Penta match.
If it's going to be like a death match style, which Penta definitely is down with doing those, I'm not huge on death matches, but considering how this feud is gone and it's like leaning in that direction, it would make sense. And they'd probably do some crazy shit and there'd be a lot of blood. And I mean, to finish on Dynamite, Lucha Bros lost to Mox and Claudio because Penta got his mask ripped off.
And Claudio put it on.
Yeah, he looked great with it, actually. I thought that was hilarious. He looked like the most jacked luchador ever. But Mox rolled him up with a handful of tights and everything. So clearly that story's not done. If they're going to do a singles match out of that, and it's not going to be Moxley versus Eddie, then I'd be cool with Moxley versus Penta in like a death match or whatever you want to call it. And then, I mean, hell, Eddie is probably so beat up from the G1 that he might not even be able to wrestle at Wembley for all I know. I would imagine if they do a match like that, he might come out and play a role in it. But
then he could have a match at All Out. But then he could have the match with Mox at All Out.
Well, in his interviews after the New Japan shows, he said, Tony, please give me Shingo at All In, give us time, and let us have a singles match. That would be incredible. It's probably not going to happen. I think he said the same thing about Ishii because, I mean, they've had some insane matches. We're not talking G1, but there were matches in the G1 that was around night 8 or 9 or something. Is basically a 5-star match to me. But I am very curious to see what Eddie does when he comes back, because the G1 has leveled him up, even though he was already pretty high up there. Eddie needs to be at the very top of the card, and I don't want to see him on Ring of Honor.
No.
Unless just in a title program with Claudio, and then when he's done, he comes back.
People love Eddie. Like, people just, we talked about this before. It ain't the prettiest face, but it's let him be the face.
He is. He's got a great story. I mean, how can you...
Hey, put it this way. He's the 2023 common man.
Really? I mean, how do you not like Eddie?
He's been through shit. He's been through life. He's been through this. Like, that's it, 2023 common man.
And now he's living his dream. You saw the video of him meeting Kawada, right?
Yep.
I thought he was going to cry. And honestly,
it looked like he was.
If I were in that situation, I probably would have. Like, that was so awesome. Like, he was like trembling. Like, that made the trip for him. I mean, Eddie is living in a dream world right now that I'm sure 5 years ago he would have laughed in your face if you had said something like that was going to happen. Remember, what did he sell his wrestling boots and basically say he was retired because he had to pay his rent? And then it was a couple of months later that Cody called him up to come in and do the invitational TNT
Which
thing.
was supposed to be a one-off.
Right. And Eddie got over so good that later that year he main evented a pay-per-view. So
yep.
Eddie is awesome.
We got us a whole nother week of it this week.
I know. So we're only 2 nights away from Dynamite coming back. And so what? On Dynamite, we got – oh, wait. And real quick, and I'm not going to go into detail because we've been talking a long time. I thought Hobbs' promo on Collision was good too. And if they're going to do Hobbs versus Miro, sign me up.
Yep, I'm all for it.
Yes. I don't need to say much more than that, other than that was Hobbs' best promo ever by far. And him and Miro beating the shit out of each other for 8 minutes in Wembley or something, and maybe go into like a double DQ because they can't be controlled because they're two monsters, and that leads to a bigger match because this feud is just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Sign me up all day.
Yep.
But yeah, so what? On Wednesday, we got
we hear from Kenny.
We hear from Kenny doing this sit down with JR. And no matter who he says, the JR sit downs are always amazing. So we know that'll be good.
You've got your Jericho.
You got your
Texas Chainsaw Death match.
Right. They've got one of them is MJF and Adam Cole come out and talk about their match. I mean, that's just going to be a promo to continue that storyline. We got Darby versus Christian. I could see that being the main event.
Mm-hmm.
And then was the Bucks versus the Guns, was that for Dynamite or Collision?
I thought Dynamite.
Okay. That'll probably open then.
So that's what we got Wednesday.
So do you have anything else from the last 2 weeks? That's a lot of information.
No, I think we pretty much covered the bulk of it. So
that was 2 weeks worth. The plan is to meet next week. You know, every other week it makes for a long show, even though I think this has been a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
When we meet next time for episode 6, we'll be talking about Dynamite. You know, Raw is going on right now, or maybe it's over now, but, you know, I don't know what happened there. You know, Collision will have happened, all that. We also will have watched that first episode of Nitro that was 2 hours, and we will discuss that. I know we've both seen the show probably multiple times, but I'm going to go back and watch it just once more to make sure I remember, and we'll make that a small part of the show. But we've been talking for a while. It's getting late. It's like 11:30 here.
I'm about to call it a night.
Yeah, I'm tired. I got to work tomorrow, and God only knows what time Colton will wake up. So on that note, we're going to sign off. I think I'm obligated to say, if you like, hit the like button. It's right there. And subscribe. And I feel like we're getting better at this. I just enjoy talking about wrestling with TJ and with Adam. Last week, me and TJ didn't do a show, but me and Adam were able to. So there was a show. We just talked about Japanese wrestling instead of American wrestling. But we also are going to, so we got the Nitros, and we'll do the pay-per-views too. I figured we were going to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going straight through.
Yeah.
We also have our retro shows. We're going to review WrestleMania 6 sooner than later. do you want to do Starrcade 97 next, or do you want to go all the way through these shows and just get to it eventually?
We'll just get to it.
Okay, that was my thought, but it was your pick, so I wanted to make sure you were down with that.
Yeah, we can just get to it,
and we'll go get to WrestleMania 6 when we can. Maybe when something happens that makes it applicable. Maybe after a huge crowd in Wembley, we can go back and hey, let's look at another huge crowd. Not quite the same. It was at Sky Dome with 60,000, 62,000 people, but that's what we got coming up. Hopefully we'll be able to record next week. We'll talk about Dynamite, Collision, Raw, SmackDown, whatever happens. But I think we're going to sign off because it's late and I'm tired and I'm going to go to bed.
Me too.